Good evening and welcome to the January 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Mount Lebanon Traffic Board. The Traffic Board is an advisory board to the Mount Lebanon Commission. The duties of the board are as follows. Make recommendations to the commission to improve traffic conditions. Receives and investigates citizens' requests pertaining to traffic and parking. Recommends to the commission and manager the means to improve the administration and enforcement of traffic laws. Reviews traffic regulations and controls. Works with the traffic consultant in the preparation of traffic studies. To assist the board with our recommendations are the municipal traffic engineer, Mike Haberman of Gateway Engineers, and Lieutenant Scott Green, Mount Lebanon Police Department Traffic Services Unit. The traffic board may only recommend actions to the Mount Lebanon Commission and municipal manager. The board does not have the ability to approve requests related to traffic. Residents who wish to have a discussion item placed on the agenda for consideration by the board should submit the request in writing at least 1 week prior to the meeting to Lieutenant Scott Green with a brief description of the issue or request, and should attend the meeting that the issue will be discussed. Citizens' comments will be taken following the introduction of each agenda item. If you wish to speak on a particular item, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. You will be provided 5 minutes to provide your comments. If a group of residents wish to speak on one particular agenda item, you may appoint a spokesperson if you so choose. If your comment or concern has been addressed by another speaker, you may simply come to the microphone, state your name and address, and indicate you are in agreement with that resident's comments. Each resident should be provided one opportunity to provide comment on each issue. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment, please click the raise hand button. You will be given 5 minutes to provide your comments. All comments or questions should be directed to the chairperson. The chairperson will request that the traffic engineer or Lieutenant Green to provide a response when appropriate. Recommendation for agenda items appearing under new business will be limited to further investigation and/or data collection and placement on a future agenda once the requested investigation and/or data collection is complete. The municipality has adopted traffic calming policy. This policy and a related frequently asked questions companion document are available online at mountlebanon.org. Okay, let us review the meetings from the minutes from the December 6th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Minutes approved. Okay, old business. Stop sign, a request for a stop sign at Sunset and Jonquil. Mr. Haberman, an update?
Yeah, this was originally on the agenda a couple of months back. We took a look at it. Showed that the stop signs on Sunset weren't warranted, but there was then a request from the resident to have crosswalks painted. So last month, what we presented was the crosswalk policy, which was adopted with the help of this board a few years back, painted crosswalk policy. And they are justified or warranted here per that policy. So this board recommended that they be installed. So this will come off of the agenda just to let you know that is being coordinated with Public Works, and they can't be painted until the weather cooperates in the spring.
Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay.
Michael, just a quick question on that. With that, there's no signage, it's just the painting.
So there will be, the crosswalk policy says on this type of a treatment where you're painting crosswalks on uncontrolled approaches, that will supplement that with a pedestrian crossing sign. I just did put the symbols on here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are we just doing this at Jonquil, or I looked in the report, was there something mentioned about the other crossroads off of Sunset?
It is just on the uncontrolled approaches.
Okay, so again, it would, some of the other crossroads that have uncontrolled approaches, that's correct, right?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah, but we're only painting at Jonquil.
okay,
correct, at Jonquil, on the if you took cross Sunset.
Right.
okay,
It's where the
Thank you.
request was. None of the other
Correct.
streets on Sunset, they crossed them.
That policy is a function of, I mean, we could paint crosswalks at every intersection, but Public Works will be very difficult to maintain, and so we developed that policy, and when requests come in, it meets those conditions, so.
all right, that's understood, thank you.
Okay, next item, Rossway parking restrictions.
This first came in November, was followed up on last month. And the initial request came from a resident about blocking of either driveways or garages. So when we looked into it, it turns out that by ordinance, parking is already restricted on both sides of Rossway between Sunset and Anawanda. So signs went up, and then everybody from the neighborhood that had property along there and businesses along there came to last month's meeting, and some discussion ensued about the possibility of modifying that restriction or allowing parking in some sense. What we did between last month and this month is reached out to police department, fire department, public safety, public works, got their input. In particular, the fire department was the bigger concern because their vehicles are obviously the largest that would have to navigate this if there's a fire, if necessary. We did hear back from the assistant fire chief. I've outlined in my report. They said they will not be able to get a fire truck down Rossway on the section from Sunset to if you look at my exhibit, there's a horizontal curve about 400 feet. On picture view, it's east, but it's really south. That part, it narrows, and it would be difficult if there are cars parked in that section for a fire truck or equipment to get through there. So they do not support any type of parking on that first section from Sunset. It does widen out once you get around that horizontal curve towards Anawanda, to the point where while they still had concerns, they would be comfortable with parking being permitted on one side. And their preference would be that it be on the lower side or the Castle Shannon Boulevard side. So the next exhibit that I show in here essentially is showing in green, if this board so chooses to make a recommendation to modify the existing restrictions that are in the ordinance to allow for parking on the west side from south of the horizontal curve to Anawanda, shown in green. Based on all of that input, I would not have a problem with that recommendation. I think I even say such in here that I think it makes sense. People have been parking, I think, along there as long as they can remember, based on what all the residents said, and unanimously they said we sure would like parking to be back on there. It might not be exactly, I know there were some folks that had properties up by Sunset that wanted it permitted up there too, but based on the input from the public safety officials, that's not a recommendation I'd be comfortable making. But my recommendation would be that we can modify the restriction to allow for parking on the Castle Shannon Boulevard side, as I've outlined.
Anybody from the public want to speak on this? Please.
No.
Speaking on behalf of myself, my father, who couldn't make it, he had high school basketball practice, but I just want to thank you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time, calling those people, talking to everybody to help this get reversed, hopefully, and we will patiently wait to hopefully see those signs come down so we can park there. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
Any discussion or motion from the board?
I have one, just a question. I'm only concerned about where the bend in the alley is. Are we starting the parking too soon near the bend? Or did you look at that, Mr. Haberman, to see about a fire truck negotiating that bend?
So this isn't the exact, this is just kind of a general.
Okay,
When we develop, if the recommendation moves forward to make this modification, we'll develop the locations for where the no parking signs should go and start and be implemented. But I basically took the red line from an aerial point of view to this garage right here.
okay,
So once you pass that garage, there's already this is a kind of a flat gravel parking area that there's, if you look on some of the aerial photos, there's cars parked in here. So the reality is that I think as long as we encompass this garage right here is about where it widens out.
oh, that's great, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about a fire truck negotiating the bend if the parking is too close to it, that's all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well,
Motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve, the recommendation from Gateway Engineers.
I second.
Could I suggest a two-part motion that maybe we add that since it's causing hardship and it might take a while to change the ordinance, that we also see no reason not to cover the signs in that green zone during the interim?
Commissioner Flynn?
So-
Well, more a question of if we approve the recommendation, for how long will it take for the ordinance to get changed? I mean, how long does the commission need to?
I don't want to overstep because you asked Commissioner Flynn, but I've spoke to Mr.
Oh,
Manager McGill about this. For this type of a change, the manager is authorized to make that change. It doesn't have to go
To
to,
the commissioner? Okay, so it gets done pretty quick.
so it can be very fast.
So there's no need for, okay. So we have a second on the motion,
I,
right?
I second.
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Recommendation passes. Thank you. Next item of old business, Salem Drive traffic calming. Anybody here to speak on this?
It's me, I live at 460 Salem Drive, and I'm just here in support of the traffic calming study. And I was the one, my wife and I were the two that rounded up all our neighbors to get all the signatures. So, thank you.
We get, because the petition has been submitted, can we get just an update of what the timeline for everything to?
Yep. Petition was submitted at the December meeting. I did speak to the municipal manager. He did authorize us to get the screening data, but he recommended that we wait till March to collect the data. And that he also wants me to mention that the municipality is seeking proposals from consultants for an active transportation plan for the entire municipality. And that a lot of this kind of stuff is going to be evaluated and looked at as part of that active transportation plan development. This data will be provided to them as well. And then also that this traffic board will be meeting March, at which time some boards are going to be changing and there's going to be a mobility board and no longer a traffic board. So that mobility board is going to be the one that's going to take up future correspondence and action on that. So it's kind of lining up that there's going to be a little bit of a delay on the data collection, but we already have another neighborhood that's in the process as well. So as I've mentioned to those other neighborhoods, it's a tedious process. It takes time. You're not going to see something out there this year anyways from a budget standpoint, because there's already things planned for this year from other neighborhoods. So we'll begin the process in March and we'll walk you through it as we go along.
Any questions, comments from the board?
And the other thing I wanted to point out is that we do have improvements that are budgeted for this year for construction, and it's currently in design for modifications to Cedar Boulevard and Salem Hollycrest intersection, which was before you guys either, I guess it would have been earlier last year now. And then all went through the process at the commission, has been funded, has been surveyed, and is under design. And I just included an exhibit in here kind of showing what those improvements are with kind of tightening that up and making it a little bit more friendly for pedestrians, and a little bit safer for vehicular movement. So there are things in the works at the Salem Cedar Boulevard intersection.
My question, I totally understand the timing and the shifting of boards and the active transportation plan. Is there any specific logistical reason not to collect the data sooner?
Mostly weather related. We could certainly get some data, but that was the manager ultimately has to approve whether we even collect data. So that's the first question. And then that was the direction that came.
Commissioner Flynn?
Thank you.
Andrew Flynn, Commissioner. Also over in this neighborhood, I drive through here quite a bit, and I'm glad that you guys got this in. Good job. I like this, and I have talked to the manager about Salem. This is a very wide street, and with this traffic calming work that we are doing this spring, you know, my expectation is with the active transportation plan that Salem will be an interesting opportunity for the community to look at how do we think about the design of the street overall, right? It's again, the default for every resident is always speed bump, right? Slow people down, put in a speed bump, but oftentimes we find that speed bumps are a tactical solution to a strategic problem. And so the question becomes, you know, can we use this data, you know, that we're studying to inform the active transportation plan broadly, but then use this street as a specific use case, you know, coming out of the active transportation plan. So I'm hoping that, you know, timing and scheduling works effectively, that we can actually use this as a neat use case for the whole community and potentially do something even more innovative than just, hey, we need to slow traffic down, put in a speed bump, right? It's actually looking at it more holistically and saying, okay, what are the design patterns that we should be thinking about? And let's involve residents more holistically, because we're going to have this whole active transportation plan exercise ongoing anyway. So I'm excited about this one. It should be interesting. And like I said, I'm really glad you guys got the forms in.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
I like the sound of that.
Anything else? Nope. Okay. And the last item of old business, Thornycroft at Crystal, a request for no parking be added.
We took a little closer look at this without really needing to go out into the field. There's a stop sign. I have an exhibit up there. So there's a stop sign on the Thornycroft spur. Turn left onto Crystal to go down towards Castle Shannon Boulevard. And then if you're going to make a right turn onto Crystal, there's a yield sign. The vehicle code, which the municipality police department enforces consistent with other ordinances that we have. My opinion and conclusion is that parking is already not allowed on any of the three sides of this island without any formal designation in an appendix or any signage. The vehicle code doesn't permit parking within 30 feet of an intersection or a stop sign or a yield sign. So when you start you take the actual intersections themselves and you start measuring those 30 feet, you're not left with any space on that island. So you're already by regulation, by state regulation, not allowed to park on those three. So there's no real recommendation that would come from us. There's no signage. There's no recommendation that would come from this board to add restrictions there. I'm saying it's already restricted. And I talked about it with Lieutenant Green, and he concurs.
Now, is there a issue with people not being, is there any signage there now, or is that signage?
Just the yield and stop.
Just the yield and stop sign. Based on the people who came to speak about it last time, and is anybody here to speak on this issue? One was sort of in favor of putting in no parking signs and one wasn't. Is there a need to let people know there's technically no parking by posting appropriate signage? Okay.
I mean, it should be fairly obvious you can't park in an intersection.
Okay.
there's no need for signs. I mean, parking here or on this, or on any of those three would be no different than parking your car like right here. You know what I mean? You're in the intersection or within 30 feet of that influence of the area of the intersection.
But that's
This
also
little
on-
island is really just a channelization island. It's not really this isn't really two separate intersections. It's one
Right.
intersection.
So, but I guess there was a question of not parking along the island, parking along where the houses, you know, across from the island.
Yield sign.
Over here.
Where the, yeah. Parking in that, I mean, that's sort of what my gathering, my recollection of what some of the complaint was people parking on the outside.
It's still the same.
You're still within
It's the
30
same.
feet of the yield sign.
Yeah.
So if someone was parked right here where my hand is, that's still illegal to be
Illegal
parked there.
parking, okay.
Without a sign.
Right, okay. Questions, thoughts? Anybody
Don't know
else?
that it's an actual problem. So painting of curbs in and of itself does not restrict parking.
No, but it conceptually, visually indicates people.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's purely, if people are parking there,
I don't know, and I didn't quite gauge how big of a problem it was. It seemed like it was one resident and it was like one
Well,
time.
right, it wasn't.
I don't know that there's just like cars parked all through this intersection all the
Right,
time.
right, fair enough.
My assumption would be that there isn't, because we've been here a long, long time and it's not been a problem.
Right.
It may have been like a one-time thing that, I don't know. To me, that there's not anything to do here.
Anybody else? Okay. Any new business from the floor? Issue? No? Okay, motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Well, a new issue from the floor, only if there's something else you want to discuss. Otherwise, we're adjourning. No, they came to us. So. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I have a question. In October, we had talked about the parking in front of Mecca.
Yes.
And it was gonna be the same as
It'll be
the rest
6 to
of the
9.
street, but the signs haven't changed. It's happening? Okay. Someone asked me. Okay.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.